Say, "Hey, you can't park that rust bucket here. This is private property." That voice hit me like a slap, loud, sharp, and dripping with authority that didn't belong to her. I hadn't even stepped out of my truck yet, and already this woman was screaming across the mountain road like she was the sheriff of the world. The air smelled of pine and rain, the cabin sitting quiet ahead of me like an old friend waiting to be hugged, and she just came stomping down the hill to ruin it. Clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, yelling like she owned the whole mountain. And right then, I knew peace wasn't going to come easy up here. Hit subscribe and stick around. This story will blow your mind. I hadn't been back here in 10 years. Life dragged me through cities, jobs, and heartbreaks I'd rather forget. But this cabin, my granddad's cabin, was the one place that never left my heart. He built it by hand back in the 60s, with nothing but a chainsaw, a hammer, and a stubborn streak that could break steel. When he passed, he left it to me. Said, "Jake, promise me you'll take care of this mountain. Don't ever let anyone take it from you." So when I finally had enough of city noise and fake smiles, I packed my truck, loaded my tools, and drove home. The gravel road curled through pine trees that whispered like old ghosts. The lake shimmered down below. My heart felt full until she showed up. She was middle-aged, blonde bun pulled tight, sunglasses perched like a crown, the perfect picture of HOA royalty. "Excuse me," she barked, storming closer. "This is a private community. You can't just park here." I stepped out, brushing off my jeans. "Ma'am, I think you're mistaken. This is my family's cabin." Her eyebrows shot up so high they nearly vanished into her hairline. "Your family's cabin?" "Oh no, sweetheart. This property's been under HOA management for years. If you don't leave, I'm calling the sheriff." She said it with that smug tone, the kind that makes your blood heat instantly. But instead of arguing, I walked up the porch steps, pulled out my granddad's brass key, and slid it into the lock. The door creaked open. Dust and cedar hit my nose, and it felt like stepping into a memory. She froze. "What do you think you're doing?" "Going inside my cabin," I said flatly. Her jaw tightened. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You're trespassing." I almost laughed. If only she knew the truth, that my granddad hadn't just left me this cabin. He left me the entire mountain, every acre of it. The cabin, the lake, the road she drove on, all of it. But I didn't tell her that yet. I just smiled and said, "Good luck with that." That was the first spark. And sparks have a funny way of starting wildfires. The next morning, I woke to the sound of engines. A convoy of shiny SUVs barreled down the dirt road, kicking up dust. Out of the front car popped the same woman. Let's call her Karen, because, well, it fits. She stood through her sunroof like a general going to war. Behind her came 3 board members, clipboards, tablets, and self-importance radiating off them like bad perfume. Karen marched straight up to my porch, waving a stack of papers. "You are in violation of HOA statutes 12, 19, and 34, she barked. "This cabin has been abandoned for more than 5 years. It's under HOA control now." I sipped my coffee. "You finished?" She blinked. "Excuse me." I set my cup down, walked back inside, and returned with a thick envelope. I held it up. "See this seal? County verified deed. My name, my property. This road, this cabin, all mine." The board members glanced at each other nervously. Karen's smile faltered for half a second before she snarled, "This isn't over." She turned on her heel, stomped back to her car, and sped off in a cloud of dust. That was the moment I realized She wasn't just a nuisance. She was obsessed. Over the next week, it began, flyers taped to my porch. Trespasser alert! Fake fines slipped under my door. Rumors spreading through town. People whispering that I was some ex-con who forged paperwork. Karen was behind it all. She sent the sheriff to my cabin with trespassing complaints. He took one look at my deed, chuckled, and said, "Between you and me, she's been a problem for everyone." I thought that might shut her up. It didn't. The next morning, workers showed up at the valley entrance, pounding posts, installing a massive private HOA property sign across my road. I drove down, handed them copies of my deed, and they left in less than 10 minutes. That night, she showed up herself, banging on my door, red-faced, screaming about lawsuits and violations. I recorded every second on my phone. Her voice cracked as she shouted, "You'll never win!" "This mountain belongs to us." I didn't even open the door, just whispered, "You're standing on my land, Karen." And that broke something in her. Word spread. Some neighbors started coming by, quietly, almost guiltily, asking if what I said was true. When I showed them the paperwork, their faces fell. "She's been lying to all of us," one man said, "charging fines on land she doesn't even own." It was only a matter of time before the truth boiled over. So when the monthly HOA meeting came, I decided to attend. I walked in calm, documents under my arm. The room went silent. Karen sat at the front, gavel in hand like a self-proclaimed queen. "You don't belong here," she snapped. I smiled. "Actually, I do. Because this building? It's sitting on my land," gasps, murmurs. I laid out the deeds, stamped and sealed. People leaned in, reading, whispering. Karen slammed her gavel, shouting that it was fake, but the board members' faces told a different story. That night, her empire began to crack. The next morning, trucks roared up the road again. She was back, in a neon vest this time, directing workers to build a fence across the entrance. "Karen," I said, stepping out onto the porch, "you're trespassing." She waved her clipboard. "Your fake papers don't mean anything here." So I called the sheriff. When the deputies arrived, they were already shaking their heads. "Karen," one said tiredly, "if you keep this up, we'll charge you for trespassing." Her face went ghost white. That night, around 9, she came back, this time with a mob. Maybe a dozen angry residents, flashlights and signs shouting, "Get out!" and "Fraud!" She stood at the front, screaming, "You'll never own this place." I stood calmly on the porch, phone recording, paperwork in my hand. "You're all trespassing," I said evenly. "This land is mine, and you're being recorded." A few neighbors backed away. Others lowered their signs. The mob fizzled, leaving Karen shaking with rage, muttering curses as she drove off. I barely slept. I knew this wasn't over. People like her, they don't stop when they lose control. They explode. A week later, it arrived, a thick envelope delivered by hand, a lawsuit. Karen and her HOA were suing me for illegal occupation, property fraud, and emotional distress to residents. I laughed out loud, but deep down, I felt the pressure. This wasn't a flyer or a fake fine. This was war. So I filed my own countersuit: harassment, trespassing, defamation. My evidence? Every video, every flyer, every recording of her threats. The day we went to court, the entire valley showed up. Karen strutted in with an expensive lawyer from the city. I walked in with a quiet local attorney who knew land law like scripture. Her lawyer ranted for half an hour about me being a fraud. Then my lawyer stood up, held the deed to the light, and said calmly, "This land was granted to the Lawson family in 1967. Legally transferred, taxes paid, verified." Then he played the videos. Karen screaming at my door, threatening mobs, ignoring the sheriff's warnings. The courtroom was silent except for her own voice echoing from the speakers. The judge frowned. "Mrs. Blake," he said, "these documents are valid. And your actions," he paused, "border on criminal." The gavel came down hard. "Case dismissed. Mr. Lawson's ownership stands." Karen's face went pale, but the judge wasn't done. "And I'm ordering a full audit of this HOA's finances." The room erupted. That audit uncovered everything. Years of stolen HOA funds, fake fines, vacations charged to residents, and misuse of power. The community turned on her overnight. Her name? Destroyed. Her position? Gone. You'd think that'd be the end. But not for Karen. 2 weeks later, she showed up at night, rain pouring, headlights cutting through the dark. 2 big guys with her, the kind that get paid in cash. She screamed through the storm, "This isn't over, Jake! You cheated me. You'll regret this." I started recording. "You're trespassing again, Karen." One of the guys looked at me, then at her, and said quietly, "Lady, this ain't worth it." They left. She screamed curses and tore off into the night. A few days later, I woke to smoke. Someone had tried to set fire to my barn. I managed to put it out, but the tire tracks told me all I needed to know. I filed a report. Deputies took it seriously this time. That same week, the community gathered, not under the HOA's control, but freely on my meadow. Families, kids, laughter, like the valley was alive again. Karen showed up, ranting about illegal gatherings, waving papers. No one listened. For the first time, the valley turned its back on her. A few weeks later, she made one last desperate move. During a community picnic by the lake, her Lexus came roaring down the hill, swerving into the meadow. She jumped out, waving papers and a gas can. "You think you won?" she screamed. "I'll burn this whole place before I let you have it." The crowd froze. She struck a match, but I was ready. I grabbed the fire extinguisher from my truck, sprinted forward, and doused the ground before the flame touched. Deputies arrived within minutes. Neighbors had already called. They cuffed her right there, screaming, soaked in rain and foam. And that was the end of Karen. It's been months now. The HOA is gone. The valley's free again. We turned that empty office into a community center. Potlucks, campfires, kids running through grass without fear of fines. Sometimes, when I sit on the porch at sunset, I still hear my granddad's voice. The land remembers who it belongs to. And I smile because he was right. This mountain remembered, and I made sure everyone else did too. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. More real stories just like this every day.